Yesterday, the Gemara was bringing the sheet of Rabbi Yochanan, who says that we know that we count the years of a Jewish king from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, because Scripture relates the reign of Shlomo HaMelech to Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the Gemara then said, how do you know that when we count the years from Yetzias Mitzrayim, we also use the cutoff date of Rosh Chodesh Nisan? In other words, it's clear that months are counted from Nisan. But how do you know that when we want to discuss the cutoff for a year, the cutoff is also Rosh Chodesh Nisan? In theory, it could be that Nisan is the first month, but perhaps the end of the year is at a different time when we want to count years. That's theoretically possible, because maybe the only reason why Nisan is called the first month is not because it really counts as a new year, but rather because we want to give prominence to Yetzias Mitzrayim, to the Exodus. So therefore, the Gemara went through a series of proofs to demonstrate that we know that Aharon's death was in the month of Av in the 40th year. We know that Moshe began speaking to the Jewish people shortly after that, a few months later, in the month of Shvat in the 40th year. The fact that the Torah discusses this month of Av and this month of Shvat in the same year, in the 40th year, even though that Shvat was after Av, shows us that it couldn't have been Tishrei as the cutoff year, because otherwise Aaron's death would have been in the 40th year and Shvat would have been in the 41st year. So the fact that the Torah counts them in the same year shows me that the cutoff is not Tishrei, and ergo the cutoff is in Nisan, which is 2 months after Shvat. Okay, that's what the Gemara was discussing yesterday, and we're now on DAF Dalet Amud Aleph. I'm sorry, Gimel Amud Aleph, I beg your pardon. Wrong page. Okay, so the Gemara now says, Ve'ema, so it's about 15 lines down. Ve'ema Rosh HaShana Iyar. Who's to tell you that the new year biblically is Nisan? All you've shown me is that between Av and Shvat, there's no demarcation of a new year. But how do you know that the demarcation is Nisan? Maybe the demarcation is any month after Shvat. Maybe it's not Nisan. Maybe it's going to be, as we'll see, it could be Adar, it could be Nisan, it could be Iyar, it could be Sivan, etc., etc. So the Gemara says, Lo sal kadaitach. You can't think that it's Iyar. Dichsev vayhi b'chodesh harishon b'shana hashenis be'echad lachodesh ukam hamishkan. Because the Torah says that on the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the second year, was when the Mishkan was erected. Uchesiv vayhi b'shana hashenis b'chodesh hasheni be'esrim b'chodesh na'ala he'anan me'al mishkan ha'edus. And it says later on in Sefer Bamidbar, it says that in that very self-same second year, but in the second month, the cloud cover removed itself from the Mishkan, which is the first time that the cloud moved. So it seems like this is shortly after the Mishkan's establishment. The cloud cover lifts up. So this is an indication, if that's also described as the second year, then it must mean that between the first month and the second month is not a demarcation of a new year, because otherwise it would have been midakoi benisan v'kori leishana shenis v'koi be'ir v'kori leishana shenis b'chlal de Rosh HaShana lav iyarhu. So that tells me that Iyar could not have been a cutoff of a new year, because then it would have called it in the third year instead of calling it the second year. Now the Gemara asks another question: Ve'ema Rosh HaShana Sivan. But maybe the new year is Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Okay, fine. It's not Tishrei. You've proven that to me. It's not any month. It's not Shvat, it's not Iyar. But maybe it's Sivan. Lo sal kadaitach. That also you can't entertain. Dichsiv b'chodesh hashlishi letzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. Because we're coming up to Shavuos, and the Jewish people come 7 weeks after they leave Egypt. They come to Har Sinai, and they're getting ready for Matan Torah. And it says it was in the third month. Now, v'imisa b'chodesh hashlishi b'shana hashenis letzeis v'goimer mi bo'ilei. If Rosh Chodesh Sivan would have been a demarcation of a new year, so then it should have pointed out in the pasuk that this was the second year. But it doesn't say that. It just says it was the third month of that self-same year after we left Egypt. So therefore we see that Rosh Chodesh Sivan is not a cutoff. Ve'ema Tammuz, ve'ema Av, ve'ema Adar. So the Gemara says, okay, but what about Tammuz, which comes after Sivan? What about Av, which comes after Tammuz? And now go back, the month after Shvat is Adar. Why not? How do you know that those months are not cutoff dates? So Ella Amar Rabbi Lazar Mehacha. So Rabbi Lazar says, you're right. I can't prove to you. All I've been able to demonstrate is that it's not, the cutoff date is not certain months. It's no month between Av and Shvat. It's not Iyar, it's not Sivan. But I haven't proven to you that it's not these other months that could be the cutoff date. But rather you can learn it from here. Because now we go back to Shlomo HaMelech. It says, Vayochel livnos b'chodesh hasheni b'sheni b'shnas arba l'malchuso. It says that he began to build in the second month, in the 4th year of his reign. Now that second time it says the word in the second, we have no idea what that means. First time it says in the 2nd year, then it says in the 2nd. What is that supposed to mean? My sheni, what is that second? Lav sheni li'oreach shemonim bola malchuso. So it must mean that it is the 2nd month of his monarchy reign. Which means that tells me that Iyar is not only the 2nd month on the biblical calendar because of Yetzias Mitzrayim, but it's also the 2nd month for monarchs. That this Iyar is the 2nd month for monarchs because Rosh Chodesh Nisan is the beginning of the new year for kings. So Rabbi Lazar basically says that's really the proof text that we've been looking for to show us that when it comes to kings, the demarcation of a new year is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. So Maskif la Ravina. So Ravina challenges this. He says, Ve'ema sheni b'chodesh. Maybe the second word basheni that you've been puzzling about doesn't mean the 2nd month of his reign, from the, that this is the 2nd month of the monarchy, of that started in Nisan, but rather it means it was the 2nd day of the month. Maybe it means it was the 2nd month, the 2nd day of the month. So imkein sheni b'chodesh behedja havaksiv be. If that were the case, it should have said explicitly in the pasuk, the 2nd day of the month. It doesn't say that. Ve'ema basheni b'Shabbos. Maybe it's the 2nd day of the week. Maybe it's just telling you it was on a Monday. Maybe that's what the word basheni means. So the Gemara says, Chada de lo ashkechan sheni b'Shabbos dichsiv. So first of all, the Gemara says, come on, we never find biblically anywhere else in Tanakh that the Torah tells us what day of the week it was. It was a Monday. It was cloudy. It was a little chilly outside. No, the Tanakh does not go into that level of detail to describe what day of the week it was. It'll tell us what day of the month. It'll tell us what day of the month. It'll tell us what month it was in the year, but it won't describe the day of the week. So therefore, it doesn't stand to reason that this is the one exception to the rule. Va'od makesheni basra l'sheni kama masheni kama chodesh avsheni basra chodesh. And second of all, the verbiage is exactly the same. The fact that it says bachodesh, what does it say? It says bachodesh hasheni basheni. So the word sheni back to back is there coming to tell you something. It's coming to give you a hint that it's telling you that we connect the 2nd of the month from Yetzias Mitzrayim to the 2nd month for the monarch demarcation. So Tanya Kavase de Rabbi Yochanan. So now we have a brisa to support everything that Rabbi Yochanan started us off with, and as you'll see, including the Rebbe Lazar pasuk that we've just brought. In other words, this brisa gives us all of the psukim, gives us a comprehensive list of psukim that indicate that a Jewish monarch's reign, the cutoff date, or the cutoff for a new year, is Rosh Chodesh Nisan. How do you know that when we count for Jewish kings, we count from Rosh Chodesh Nisan? Shene'amar, Vayhi b'shmonim shana ve'arba me'yoshana l'tzeis b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim v'goymer. So first it brings the first pasuk that Rabbi Yochanan had brought from Sefer Menachem, which connects Solomon's reign to Yetzias Mitzrayim. And then it says, Uchsiv vayal Aaron HaKohen el hor al pi Hashem v'gomer, Uchsiv vayi ba'arbim shana be'ashtei asar chodesh. Then it brings the pasuk of Aaron's death in Av and Moshe's delivery to the Jewish people in Shvat, and they're both the 40th year. Uchsiv acharei hakoso es sichon v'omer vayishma knani. And it also lists all of the things that happened in between those two events, in between those two events, where we proved that Aaron's death was before Moshe spoke to the Jewish people, that we learned in yesterday's DAF. Vayomer vayu kol eida ki gava Aharon vayihi vayomer vayihi b'chodesh harishon b'shana hashenis v'gomer. Then it quotes the pasuk from the Mishkan, vayomer vayihi b'shana hashenis b'chodesh hasheni, right, etc. Vayomer b'chodesh hashlish l'seis b'nei Yisrael v'gomer. Then it brings the pasuk from Sivan to tell me that it can't be Rosh Chodesh Sivan. Vayomer vayochel livnos v'gomer. Then finally brings Rabbi Lazar's pasuk, which shows me from Divrei Hayamim that Solomon's reign is connected to Yetzias Mitzrayim. Amar Rav Chisda, Lo Shanu Elo L'Malchei Yisrael. So Rav Chisda tells us a very important principle. Okay, so that concludes that discussion. But now Rav Chisda tells us a very important rule. He says, Lo Shanu Elo L'Malchei Yisrael. that this rule that the new year for a king starts in Rosh Chodesh Nisan is only for Jewish kings. But for Gentile kings, the new year of their reign, anytime even the Bible records what year of the reign it was, it's counting from Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. And it stands to reason, for Rosh HaShana, it stands to reason that way because after all, a Gentile king has no connection to Rosh Chodesh Nisan. He's not part of the Jewish experience of Exodus. So therefore, logic would dictate exactly what Rav Chisda is saying, that he's part of the universal experience of humanity, which is from the time of creation, which is Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So Shenamar, and I can prove it to you from the pasuk. It says, "Divrei Nechemya ben Chachliah, vayhi b'chodesh Kislev shnas esrim v'goymer." So I'll prove it to you because we're going to tell you now about the words of Nehemiah, which is from the first chapter of the book of Nehemiah. And the opening of Nehemiah starts with the month of Kislev in the 20th year of the reign of the king. And then it says in the following chapter, it says that it was then in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of the reign of Artaxerxes, which is Artaxerxes, is the way it's translated. So midakoi bekisle v'kori leishnas estrim v'koi benisan v'kori leishnas estrim mechal de Rosh HaShana lav nisanu. So this seems to prove the point: is that if the book opens in the 20th year of the reign in the month of Kislev, and then it commences to the 20th year in the month of Nisan, if Nisan was the cutoff date for the new year for the king, it should have said the 21st year. So the fact that it doesn't means that Rosh Chodesh Nisan only works for Jewish kings, not for Gentile kings. So the Gemara says, wait a minute. Bishlam ha'heichem mefarish de l'Artaxerxes, Elohim yimai de l'Artaxerxes, dilma l'minyan acharina. So the Gemara asks the question, how do you know that the year 20 mentioned in chapter 1 is referring to the year 20 of Artaxerxes' reign? Maybe that year 20 is some other 20th year of something else. Because in the chapter 2, it says it's the 20th year of the reign of Artaxerxes. But the first chapter doesn't say that it's the 20th year of the reign of Artaxerxes. It just says the 20th year of something. The 20th year, that's all it says. So how do you see that? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Papa, Shnas Esrim l'gzeira shava, Mahasum la'artaxerxes, Avhacha la'artaxerxes. So the Gemara says very simply, it says 20 years in chapter 1, it says 20 years in chapter 2, so it stands to reason using the principle of gzeira shava, that whatever is the 20th year, referring to 20th year of what in chapter 2 is the same 20th year in chapter 1.
So this just proves that it's not Nisan, but has it proved that it's Tishrei?
That's a valid point. It's a valid argument. The Gemara does not go through that exercise over here. I believe the answer is what I prefaced outside, which is once it's not Rosh Chodesh Nisan, you revert back to Rosh Chodesh, the universal Rosh Chodesh of Brias HaOlam, to the time of creation.
Are you using the term Gezeira Shava here in the way it's normally used?
I doubt it. This is more logic because it's not a formal Gezeira Shava.
In hindsight, it was 20/20 vision.
Yes, very good. Thank you for that. Now, umimai demaisa kislev kadim, dilma maisa denisan kadim. So now the Gemara asks the question. Ein mukdam u'mu'achar b'Torah. There's no chronological order throughout Tanakh. So maybe the 20th year that's of Nisan, or Kislev, that's discussed in chapter 1, happened after the Rosh Chodesh Nisan that's discussed in chapter 2. So therefore, that's the reason why they're both 20. So the Gemara says, Lo sal gadaitach. You can't suggest that because the Tanya, Dvarim shamar chanani lenechemya b'Kislev, amra nechemya lemelech b'Nisan. So we have a brisa that tells us as follows. Now, there's a whole chronology of events. I'm not an expert in this part of Tanakh, but I can tell you the basic story. That really this section of Nehemiah is talking about where there already was a yishuv that had returned back to Yerushalayim. They had been given permission by Koresh, by Cyrus, to go ahead and build the temple, but the effort stalled. He sent back a dispatch to go back to Yerushalayim to rebuild the yishuv. But things were not going well. There were obstacles along the path. And Hanani was a man who was living in the yishuv in Yerushalayim, and he sends a message to Nehemiah, who's living in Chutz La'aretz, telling him, hey man, we need some help. Okay? So, Devarim Shamar Hanani leNehemiah b'Kislev, he says, so what did Hanani say to Nehemiah in the month of Kislev, which is in chapter 1? Shenamar Divrei Nehemiah ben Chachliah, Vayi b'chodesh Kislev shnas esrim, va'ani hayisi b'Shushan habira. So Nehemiah records as follows. I was living in Shushan at the time, outside of Eretz Yisrael. Vayavo Chanani echad me'achai hu va'anoshim miYehuda. So a dispatch comes from Yerushalayim, from Judea, and comes Hanani is the leader, and they come to visit me. So I asked them, I inquired about the welfare of the remnant that was left in Jerusalem. So he told me that unfortunately whoever's left in Yerushalayim is in a very sad, sorry state. And he told me the walls of Jerusalem are breached, the gates are burned to the ground. So therefore the Brisa tells me that Nehemiah went ahead and in chapter 2 traveled to the king to tell him what's going on. King, please help us. So therefore you see that the record in Nehemiah chapters 1 and 2 is in chronological order. Shenemar vayiba chodesh Nisan shnas estrim la'artachshasta hamelech yayin lefanav. As it says in the pasuk, that it was in the month of Nisan in the 20th year of King Artachshasta, and they brought wine before him. So I took it upon myself. I took the wine. I brought it to the king. And I wasn't bad in his eyes, meaning that the king seems to have been in a good mood, and I found favor in his eyes. So the king says to me in the pasuk, why do you look so terrible? You're not sick, but you look really lousy. You must be in a terrible mood. You must be depressed. So I got very scared. And I said to the king, may you live forever. So I said to him, Your Majesty, how can I not be sad? The city that is the ancestral burial site, right, and is now burned to the ground, and it's totally destroyed. So the king says, well, what are you asking? What do you want from me? So I davened to Hashem quickly, and Hashem should give me the right words. And I said to the king as follows: So if it please your Majesty, please send me to Judea, to the city of my ancestors' burial site, and let me rebuild it. That was my request. Let me finish the project. So the king, together with his consort, this woman who's sitting next to him, so she says, So she pipes up, and she says, well, how long will it take you to go, and when will you come back? So she's already speaking on behalf of the king, sort of jumping the gun, but like it was to my favor, because Vayitav lifnei hamelech vayishlacheni. So the king decided that this was a good idea, and he therefore sent me. And I gave him the time when I would return. So you see, therefore, that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is not the cutoff time for a king's Rosh HaShana if he's a Gentile king. So Masav Rav Yosef. So Rav Yosef now challenges this. He says, B'yom esrim v'arba l'chodesh, b'shishi b'shnas shtayim l'dar yovesh. Now let's look at a pasuk in Chagai, another prophet. It says that it was the 24th of the month, in the 6th month, which is the month of Elul, as we know, and it was in the 2nd year of the reign of Darius. Uchesiv, but then there's another pasuk later on in the next chapter of Chagai that says, Ba'ashvi'i be'esim ve'echad l'chodesh. And it says right afterwards that later on in the 7th month, in the 21st day of the month, and it doesn't point out that it was in the next year. But according to what you've just said, Gentile kings have a new transition year on Rosh Chodesh Tishrei and Rosh HaShana. V'misa b'shvi b'shnas gimel miborle. It should have therefore said that it was the 3rd year of his reign, because the previous pasuk, which was in Elul, said it was the 2nd year of his reign. So Amar Rabbi Avahu Koresh Melech Kosher Haya Lefichach Manu Lo Kemalchei Yisrael. So the Gemara answers, even though Koresh was a Gentile, but he was a righteous Gentile, and he was good for the Jews, and therefore it attributes to him this counting of a Jewish king. which is a huge chiddush. So the Gemara says, but wait a minute, you've lost count, you've lost sight of who we're talking about. So first of all, we have a steer in Psukim according to what you're saying, because if you're telling me that Koresh's reign went according to Jewish kings in Rosh Chodesh Nisan, then let's look at another pasuk. Tichsiv v'shitzaya beisa dina ad yom tlasa liyerach adar dihu shnas shis l'malchus Daryavish malka. So it says that the temple's construction was completed when? When was it completed? On the third day of the month of Adar, which was in the 7th year of the king of Darius, of the king Darius. Now, hold on a second. The 6th year of King Darius, the temple is completed. Vitanya ba'osuzman l'shana haba ala Ezra mibavel v'galuso ima. We know from a Masorah and a Brisa that the very next year, at exactly the same time in Adar, which is now the 7th year of the reign of Darius, it says that Ezra came up from Bavel together with an entire delegation. And the pasuk says that he comes to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which is now, what is the 5th month of the year? The 5th month of the year is Av. 5th month of the year is Av, so he comes to Eretz Yisrael, Ezra, in the 7th year, and then a few months later in Av, he now appears before the king, or he appears in Yerushalayim. Now, if that's the case, that Rosh Chodesh has elapsed, and Cyrus is the righteous king, so then it should be the 8th year of his reign. Vim Isa Shnas Hashminas Mi Boile. It should have been the 8th year, because Rosh Chodesh Nisan is between Adar and Av. So therefore, that's a problem for you. If you're telling me, you got to make up your mind. Is it Rosh Chodesh Tishrei? Is it Rosh Chodesh Nisan for a righteous Gentile king? Va'od midame hasam koresh hachadar yavesh. And furthermore, says the Gemara, you forgot who the person that you're talking about is, because you just got through telling me that Koresh was a righteous king. But that previous pasuk that you were quoting from Chagai is talking about Darius. It's not talking about Koresh. Two different people. So which one is it? Which one is it going to be? So Tana, who Koresh, who Daryavesh, who Artach Shasta. So the Gemara says no. There's clearly more than one Koresh. There's Cyrus 1 and there's Cyrus 2. And Cyrus 2 is the same person as Darius. And his name was also Artaxerxes. I think one of the reasons why the Persian Empire collapsed is because it was too hard to pronounce their names, and you never knew who you were talking about. Because there's so many Cyruses and so many Dariuses and so many Xerxes and Artaxerxes and Anti-Xerxes, it's too confusing. Who could keep track? You needed a scorecard. But the Gemara tells us that in this, even though one pasuk is talking about Daryavish and one's talking about Koresh, they're really one and the same person. And this person who was in charge of the completion of the Mishkan, of the temple, is a righteous man, and therefore we count him from Rosh Chodesh Nisan and not Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. And why was he called all three names? Koresh Shemelech Kosher Haya. Koresh, I guess if you transpose the letters, he's a kosher man, kosher king. Artachshasta al Shem Malchuso. Artachshasta, I believe in Persian, I guess if you would pronounce it right, would be, David, you speak any Farsi?
No, sorry.
Okay. It means, I think, the extension of his kingdom, something like that. May his kingdom extend, something to that effect. And Umashmo Daryaveshmo, but his real name was Daryavesh. So anyway, it's all the same person. But Mikol Makom Kasha, but you only answered the second question. You didn't answer the first question. The first question is, make up your mind. In the pasuk in Nehemiah, you're right. It seems to say that it was the same year 20 going from crossing over Tishrei. So you see that the cutoff point is not Tishrei, but if he crossed over Nisan and it's still the same year, then you're contradicting yourself. So the Gemara says, Amar Rabbi Yitzchak lo kasha, kan kodem shehechmitz, kan la'achar shehechmitz. It answers the Gemara, fascinating teretz. It says that at some point in the middle, Daryavesh went sour, and he no longer was the righteous king. So when he was righteous, his reign counted from Nisan, from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, like a Jewish king. But then he reverted back to his bad Gentile ways, and therefore the counting of his reign switched back to Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. So the pasuk in Nehemiah, which counts him as using Rosh Chodesh Nisan as the cutoff, is earlier when in the process of building, when he's speaking to Nehemiah. And the later pasuk, which is in Chagai, which talks about the completion of the construction, is and where the cutoff now is Tishrei, and that's why you could say that from Adar to Av there is no new year.
What do they do about Shtarot in those days?
Good question. I don't know. It's an interesting. It's obviously going to be very confusing, but perhaps the way that they counted in the Persian Empire was different from the way that the pasuk counts. The pasuk is giving us a biblical record for posterity for Klal Yisrael, so that's different from what was done governmentally and on a societal level for the rest of society.
Shtaros, do they note the Persian kings, or would they note something about?
Well, presumably, if it's the Persian Empire, the counting was according to the Persian king's reign.
But wasn't he Jewish? Actually?
That's another good question, which we're not going to deal with right now. We're assuming that the Gemara holds him as being a Gentile. What his relationship to Esther was, it's unclear at this point. So Maskef lo Rav Kahana, because this is referring to Darius or Koresh Cyrus II. It could be that it's only the first one was Esther's son, but by the time you get down to here, it's already a Gentile. So Maskef lo Rav Kahana umi hechmitz. How can you tell me that this king Daryavesh went sour, that he went bad? V'haksiv, look at the following pasuk at the time of the building of the temple. Uma chashachan uvnei torin v'dichrin v'imrin la'alon le'elaka shemaya. He says, whatever kinds of desire they have as far as animals, as far as birds that they can use as karbanos, chantin melach chamar umashach, whatever wheat, salt, wine or oil they need, kimamar kohanaya di Birushalayim, lehava misyayiv lahem, yom biyom dilo shalu. Daryavish says, give them whatever they want, whatever supplies they need in Jerusalem, according to whatever the Kohanim tell you, you should give them. So you see that, and don't take anything away. In other words, don't deny them anything. So you see, he was still righteous at the completion of the temple. How can you tell me he went sour at this point? So Amalo Rabbi Yitzchak, Rebbe Matuncha. So Rabbi Yitzchak says back to him, Rebbe, the very peckle that you brought to support that he was righteous also demonstrates that he went rogue. Why? Because dilahon mehakravei nichochin le'eloka shemaya umatzn l'chaye malku v'nohem. So, because the very next pasuk says that the whole reason why he was doing this is because he wanted people to daven on behalf of the king, that he should do well, and that his children should succeed him properly. So you see that he wasn't doing it altruistically l'shem shamayim; he was doing it for his own protection. So that shows that he went sour. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, Uman David hachi lav mal yusahi? You're telling me that if a person is not l'shem shamayim, but he ends up serving Hashem shalol l'shem shamayim, shalol lishma, that's called going sour? V'hatanya, what about the following brisa? Ha'omer selazu litzdaka v'shvil sheyichyu bonai uv'shvil she'ezke b'lechaye ha'olam haba harezet tzadik amor. If a person says, I hereby give this coin to tzedakah, so that my children should live and be well, or so that I should get olam haba, even though he's not doing it for altruistic reasons, lishma, he's doing it for his own protection, he's still called a tzaddik gamor. So why are you calling Daryavish not a tzaddik just because he did it for selfish motives? So the Gemara says, Lo kasha kan b'Yisrael kan ba'ovdei kochavim. The answer is there's an intrinsic difference between a Jew who does shalol lishma and a non-Jew who acts shalol lishma. And like Rashi explains, when a Jew gives tzedakah, even though it's for selfish motives, he wants his children to be healthy. And Nebuch, if one of them, God forbid, becomes ill, he doesn't regret having done the mitzvah. He doesn't regret having given the tzedakah or having done the good act. But that's the difference between a Jew and a Gentile. When a Gentile does an act that's for selfish motives, if the outcome of his mitzvah was not fulfilled, he complains and he regrets. And he has tainus against Ribono Shel Olam. So therefore, that's the intrinsic difference. It's a very difficult Gemara to understand, and it needs more analysis. And there's a lot to discuss about this, but we'll save it for another time. And we'll get to the other answer, as how do we answer this question about how do we reconcile the reign of Daryavish's cutoff month, Mirz Hashem, tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.